Hello everyone, welcome back to another Reading with Raptors. We are once again outside. We actually have a red-tailed hawk in the enclosure next door who was totally quiet until the very moment that I started talking. So if you see any or hear any very loud screaming in the background, that is a red-tailed hawk who is, I guess, making a cameo on today's video, which today we are actually, you can hopefully see up here in the corner, we're going to be talking about our Peregrine Falcon, one of our resident Peregrine Falcons known as Artemis. So one of our older Peregrine Falcon residents that we have here at the Raptor Center. So she is pretty famous, has been doing a lot of education during her time here at the Raptor Center. So definitely pretty well known. So I figured she would make a return here on Reading with Raptors since it's been a while since we've checked in with her. She is eating a nice chunk of quail. I know the lighting is maybe not optimal. It got a little bit sunnier out than it was earlier though, which is excellent. It was pretty stormy. If you were in the Twin Cities area or in other places in the upper Midwest right now, there's been a lot of storms rolling through. So I figured we'd sneak out while it was kind of in between the storms. So she's gonna sit up there, hopefully work on that nice chunk of quail. I'll see if, my goal is to try to get her back down here so we can see her a little bit closer up when we are finished reading, so we can kind of adjust accordingly or see if we can get her to come on down and eat some more quail a little bit later on. For now, you'll maybe see her kind of in the background working on that, plucking off all those feathers, using that curved sharp beak and those talons to really hold onto her food and then rip it apart with that curved sharp beak. So hopefully you get to see that kind of in the background. I thought that a Peregrine Falcon would be a great fit for this week because we are going to be reading Move by Steve Jenkins and Robin Page. This particular book is not specifically about raptors, but I figured that having the fastest bird in the world would be a really good fit for a book about how things move. So this one also has, you can see right away at the start, this really cool like cut paper art style that I think is so fun. So I'll try to do some very good kind of zooming in with that because I think that this one is fantastic. So this is Move. Here's the first page of it. So it has this wonderful penguin on it. So that says Move. Animals move in different ways. Swing! A gibbon swings through jungle trees. So there's the big A, and there's a gibbon swinging through the trees. Or walks on two back legs. Here it says walk. There's that gibbon close up. I love this fuzzy paper. I think that's so fun. A jacana walks on floating lily pads. So you can see this jacana and those huge feet for walking on lily pads. Guess you would need very big feet to walk on those tiny floating leaves. Or the jacana then dives in to catch a fish. It says dive. A blue whale dives deep, deep, deep. There's that jacana diving, and there's the blue whale going down, down, down. And in the background we have Peregrine Falcon working on ripping up that food. Swim! And swims below the ocean waves. An armadillo swims across a stream. So here we have that blue whale swimming, and then the armadillo with its fancy armor swimming across a stream. I just love the texture on this blue whale. It's excellent. Leap! And when startled, the armadillo leaps straight up. I have to show you this one up close. You can see the fuzzy hairs on the bottom side of this armadillo. A crocodile leaps to snag its meal. So there's that crocodile leaping up. See those big teeth? You can see how its skin is very scaly and tough. So a crocodile leaps to snag its meal. After slithering silently into the water. This one says slither. A snake slithers through rustling leaves. So you can see that alligator slithering into the water, and then the snake making its way through the rustling leaves. Slithering. I should just stand. Ooh, climb. And then the snake climbs up into a tree. A praying mantis climbs a blade of grass. Here's that snake climbing up in the tree. You can see the scaly skin. And then we have that praying mantis with its very long legs climbing up the blade of grass. Then it spreads its wings and flies. So this one says fly. You can see the praying mantis has taken its wings out and is flying away off of that blade of grass. Our red-tailed hawk in the background. A roadrunner flies, but not too far. You see that roadrunner flying with those big open wings. This one says, run. It would rather run to catch its prey. So this is that roadrunner who's been running and caught a little lizard. See the little lizard in its beak? Roadrunners are very fast. An Arctic hare runs across the ground. There's that Arctic hare running using those long legs. Pages on this one are kind of slippery, sorry. There we go. Then it dances, tumbling with its mate. You can see them leaping up into the air using those big, strong legs. A jumping spider dances to impress. This one says, dance. Dancing is a very important form of movement. You can see, I love seeing the very fuzzy legs on this jumping spider. You can see the fuzzy little legs. Then floats away on a thread of silk. And this one says, float. So you can see the jumping spider floating away using its little silk tether. A polar bear floats in dark, icy water. You can see, I love the layers of paper to make this polar bear as it floats in that cold, cold water. Looks like it would be toasty warm, huh? With all those fluffy fur. There you go. Then it slides down a snow-covered hill. You can see it stretching out its legs and sliding down the hill. So this one says, slide. A penguin slides, splash, into the sea. We have our penguin going head first, sliding right down into the water. This one says waddle, big letters, waddle. And the penguin waddles with its colony. So you can see there's a whole big group of penguins waddling along on those short little legs. Animals move in different ways. Waddle, slide, float, dance, run, fly, climb, slither, leap, swim, dive, walk, swing. How about you? And here it says move. So how do you move? Do you do any of these words? Do you slide? Do you climb? Do you slither? Here's this back page that has a lot of little tidbits of information, so I'll read through some of these because I think they're really fun. So some more information on the animals that were in this book. So the white-cheeked gibbon is an acrobatic animal that spend their lives in the treetops. Gibbons travel by swinging from branch to branch, sometimes covering more than 30 feet or 9 meters with a single swing. On the ground, they can stand upright and walk on their back legs. Gibbons are found in the jungles of Southeast Asia, where they eat plants, insects, and birds' eggs. A large gibbon weighs about 15 pounds, or 7 kilograms. So that was our swinging animal. The African jacana walks across the surface of water by stepping on floating lily pads. Its long toes and claws spread its weight out and keep it from sinking. This long-legged bird is also an excellent diver and swimmer. It eats insects and fish and lives in the wetlands of southern Africa. African jacanas are about 12 inches or 30 centimeters long. Blue whales are the largest animals that have ever lived. They dive deep into the seas and are very fast swimmers. These huge mammals can be more than 100 feet long, that's 30 meters, and weigh as much as 25 African elephants. Blue whales eat only tiny shrimp-like animals called krill. The 9-banded armadillo is about the size of a large house cat. It can cross a river by swimming on the surface or by walking across on the bottom. On land, this armored mammal looks slow and awkward, but it can move quickly. When surprised, the armadillo can jump straight up into the air, startling an attacker. Armadillos live in the southern United States and South America. They eat insects and small animals. Strangely, baby armadillos are always born as identical quadruplets. So that means that there are 4 babies at the same time. It's pretty impressive. The Nile crocodile is a huge reptile, reaching 20 feet in length. The crocodile lies quietly in the water, waiting for an unsuspecting animal to approach. Then, with a stroke of its powerful tail, it leaps forward and grabs its prey with sharp teeth. Crocodiles often bask in the sun at the edge of a lake or river, slithering down the bank to return to the water. They will eat almost any animal they can catch, sometimes even humans. The Nile crocodile lives in rivers and lakes throughout Africa. So here's that first page that we were just looking at. Those are all the animals that we saw in the first part. The colorful corn snake has a flattened belly, which helps it climb trees and walls. Like many other snakes, the corn snake moves over the ground with a slithering motion, forming S-shaped loops with its body. Corn snakes live in the southeastern United States and can grow up to 6 feet long. They eat rodents and birds and kill their prey by squeezing it to death. The praying mantis holds its front legs folded in front of its body as if it was praying. The mantis climbs onto a twig or branch where it looks like part of the plant. There it waits motionless until an unlucky insect, lizard, or mouse, or even small bird wanders by. Then it grabs its prey with spine-covered legs and devours it. After its meal, this big insect, which may be more than 6 inches long, can fly to a new hunting spot. Praying mantises live in most warm and tropical parts of the world. The roadrunner is a desert bird that lives in the southwestern United States and Mexico. It can fly for short distances with its stubby wings, but it is better at running than at flying. It can move along the ground faster than most humans can run. The roadrunner eats insects, lizards, snakes, and mice, and is about 22 inches long, so a decent-sized bird. The Arctic hare lives in northern Canada. Its fur is brown in the summer, but turns white in the winter when the ground is covered in snow. When threatened, the Arctic hare runs, using its powerful back legs to escape danger. During the spring, males and females perform an elaborate courtship dance, taking turns somersaulting over each other. The Arctic hare is up to 2 feet long and feeds on twigs and roots. The male jumping spider performs a dance to impress a female jumping spider, waving its bright red abdomen back and forth. This tiny spider is only about 1/4 of an inch long. Super, super tiny. The jumping spider can float through the air by ballooning, spinning a silk thread that is caught by the wind. And, of course, it can jump up to 40 times its body length. The polar bear, the largest of the bears, may be 10 feet long. It lives in the Arctic and has a thick layer of fat that keeps it warm and helps it float in the icy water. A strong swimmer and fearsome predator, the polar bear is also a playful animal, rolling in the snow and sliding down snow-covered hills. These bears eat seals, walruses, fish, and caribou. And finally, penguins. Penguins live in the southern hemisphere, so the kind of the bottom half of the world if you're looking at most maps or globes. So a penguin would never meet a polar bear in the wild. Penguins waddle slowly on the ground, but when they slide or dive into the water, they are swift and graceful swimmers. The largest of these flightless birds are emperor penguins, which can be 4 feet tall. They spend much of their time in the sea, where they feed on fish and shrimp. So here are those pictures again just one more time, because I think these pictures are just so gorgeous. You can see the S shape of the snake as it slithers along. You can see the praying mantis's wings. My favorite is the jumping spider's bright, flashy red abdomen that it can wave around. You can see the penguins waddling along. So I thought this was a great book to read with our peregrine falcon, since as we know, peregrine falcons are the fastest animal in the entire world. Peregrine falcons move by, they can fly like most other raptors can. They have very long, kind of pointy, narrow wings and a very long, narrow tail, which is great for kind of cutting through the air. So they're not necessarily the fastest birds when they're flapping along kind of in a horizontal line. Where they're really fast is when they fly up high. They'll start off on a cliff, something like this. They'll fly up high and they'll hunt other birds. So what they'll do is they'll tuck in their wings and they'll dive down in what's called a stoop, or very powerful dive. They'll tuck in those long pointy wings to really cut through the air. While they're doing that dive, they can reach speeds of over 200 miles per hour. In fact, the fastest one that we've ever been able to scientifically prove was at 242 miles an hour, I believe. It's either 242 or 244, but over 240 miles per hour. So peregrine falcons are the fastest animal in the world. So there are some very fast birds out there, definitely. And peregrine falcons, if they're gonna be catching other birds, they need to be even faster. So usually they're trying to kind of surprise their prey by diving down on them from above rather than try to chase after them. Because other birds can be very, very fast, but diving down on them is a pretty good strategy. I'm gonna give her this other chunk of quail, see if she'll maybe hang out down here. Slightly awkward. Did you see it? You missed it. There we go. She brought it over where we can't watch. I'll see if I can turn the camera here and see where she ends up wanting to rip that apart. I think we were pretty excited about food this morning. Maybe we'll just kind of spin this around so we can see. I know the lighting might be a little bit funky, but at least then you can see her a little bit better than what we've got. So this is awkward kind of distance. So yeah, she was moving pretty quickly, huh? So they can move very fast, especially when there is food involved, definitely. I'm gonna scroll back here. I saw a couple of chat things. I wanna make sure I didn't miss any questions. Oh, awesome, some folks who were able to see this Peregrine Falcon at your library? Absolutely. This bird has traveled to so many places in her time with us at the Raptor Center. We've been really lucky to have her as an education bird for quite some time. She currently is actually retired from programs just as she gets a little bit older, but she's been a phenomenal bird in our kind of displays. So we've been really happy to kind of include her in on some of these more online programs. So she gets to hang out, eat quail in here after working really hard. So this Peregrine Falcon is actually with us because she was actually raised in captivity. So she was raised by adult Peregrine Falcons, so she knows how to be a Peregrine Falcon. I know in some of our other videos we've talked a lot about our human imprints, or birds who were raised by people. So this bird was raised by her parents. A lot of times these birds are raised in captivity for the purposes of falconry. So falconry is a sport where people will actually work with a bird and train them so that they can use them for hunting. So somebody had this bird to be able to go out and catch other birds for hunting as a sport. And this particular Peregrine Falcon just was not flying very high. And as we talked about with our book, and as we just talked about with Peregrine Falcons, it's really important for them to be able to go really fast. And if you aren't flying very high, you're not going to be able to build up those fast speeds that you need. So that is why this bird lives with us, is she really wasn't able to do the job that she had. And so we figured that she would be much better at teaching people. Since she had some experience with people before, it's going to be pretty easy for her to adapt to teaching people instead. And she's been fantastic at that new job for, again, quite some time. She's hopefully going to work on that quail. I don't know if we're a little bit worried about the camera. We have been here before, but I'm wondering if I can lower this down a little bit. Sorry for the shaky camera. I just figured this might be a little bit better. There, we'll just put her in the center. You don't need me in here. Any other questions about Artemis? I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. There we go. She's going to work on that a little bit. We've also got some wonderful birds outside. I love these front displays because we've got so many things up here for birds to look at. So we have some, there's a couple starlings flittering around in the trees behind that I know she usually spends a lot of her day watching, which is always excellent. So she's gonna work on, one thing about these falcons is in addition to having the very long pointy wings and the very long narrow tail, they also have really long toes. So falcons aren't usually, they don't have the biggest grip strength. When we think of a lot of our other raptors, we think of birds who can grab onto other animals and usually kill them right away using their feet. But falcons, they have these very long, narrow toes, which are great for reaching out and grabbing things in midair. You want really long toes to be able to grab onto those other birds. But it does mean that their feet aren't quite as strong just because they're longer. They can't pack as much power into there. So hopefully you can see a little bit of those very, very long toes doing their work, holding on to that quail. Ooh, will they eat the birds they catch all at once, or do they come back to it later? That is a really good question. So a lot of times, and actually you might be able to see it a little bit too, especially because she is a little bit more silhouetted with the light behind. You might be able to see as she eats, you're going to see a little bit of a kind of bulge at the top of her chest from all the food that she's eating. So what these birds will try to do is they'll usually kind of take that bird that they have. If they're able to carry them up, they'll bring them up to like a nice side of a cliff or a side of a building or a bridge or something like that. Something kind of tall, really hard to access with a nice kind of flat ledge on it. And that's where they'll rip up that food, and they will try to shovel as much food into themselves as possible, as quickly as they can. So what she's doing right now is that food is going into that kind of storage tank on the top of her chest called a crop. And so that way she can eat a ton of food without actually having to worry about digesting it yet. So she can shovel in a bunch of food, and especially if she catches, Peregrine Falcon catches something like a duck, maybe that's too big to really carry away, they might have to sit there on the ground and rip it apart. And that can be really dangerous because there are a lot of other animals living there on the ground that could try to sneak up on them and either steal the duck or try to catch the Peregrine Falcon while it's on the ground and kind of vulnerable. So they'll try to shovel in as much food as they can and then go somewhere kind of nice and safe to digest it. So it'll kind of depend on the size of the bird that they caught. If it's a small enough bird, then they might be able to just eat all of the really good usable meat all at once. Sometimes what they'll do is they will bring those smaller birds up to, say they have chicks in a nest. They'll sit up there and they'll bring them up there, and then they might, it might take a little bit for them to eat all of that bird. In general though, falcons, especially our peregrine falcons, are looking for pretty fresh food. Like I said, if they've got a couple of stores and a nesting site, they might kind of come back to them. Especially the youngsters might be looking around for food and might pick at something a little bit older. But for the most part, they're either going to eat all that they can while they have it, or it will kind of come back up to their nest and might hang out for a little bit. So that is a very long answer to that question, but for the most part, they're very big fans of the fresh food. There are some smaller falcons that regularly are catching things that are too big to eat. So say a good-sized mouse might be too much for something like a merlin or an American kestrel to eat. So they will do one of my favorite raptor behaviors, which is called caching. It sounds like when you say like cash, like money, it's spelled C-A-C-H-E, caching. And so they're able to, or like a cache is C-A-C-H-E. So caching food is when they kind of have a little hiding place for it. So they'll find a little hole in a tree or something like that, and they'll stash it in there, and then they can come back and find it later if they need it. But again, peregrine falcons, not usually so much. A couple of last questions here. How many eggs typically? For peregrine falcons, usually I'm seeing about 3, maybe 4. I think I've seen as many as 5 when I've looked at nest cams or kind of reports from people banding them. A lot of times we know where peregrine falcon nests are, so scientists will go up and put little leg bands on all of the chicks once they're a certain age, so that we can kind of track where they end up. So typically I'd say about 3 or 4 is pretty typical that I've certainly seen. 5 maybe as kind of the upper limit, but I'd say 3 or 4 is pretty typical for peregrine falcons. And then how old is Artemis? So Artemis is, oh my goodness, 19 this year? I think 19 this year. I never remember the year. I always try to remember the number, and then I forget if that was last year's number or this year's number, but I'm fairly certain it is 19 years old this year, which is fairly old for a peregrine falcon. Typically in the wild, they'll live about 10 to 15 years, though certainly we have reports of some living longer, thanks to that banding information that we have. So we know that they can live a little bit longer, closer to 20 years, but typically 10 to 15 is a pretty normal lifespan for peregrine falcons. Typically living with people, they might live into their kind of early 20s or so. It's usually pretty normal for peregrine falcons. Pretty intense lifestyle for them out there. So not quite as long-lived as some of your larger raptors who are doing more of that kind of soaring, sitting, waiting, kind of hunting. Pretty active, pretty fast lifestyle pace for our peregrine falcons. So about 10 to 15 years is pretty normal for them. So Artemis is, again, kind of a senior peregrine falcon, enjoying kind of a half retirement here at the Raptor Center from education. So with all those, I think that'll be all the questions we have time for today, but I do want to thank you all for joining us. And hopefully the lighting works out well. I know the backlighting is a little bit awkward. I was hoping it would be almost a little bit cloudier out. But hopefully you've been able to see a good amount of her ripping up her food on this little fake rock cliff that we have for her. So this has been Artemis, the peregrine falcon. We hope that you'll check out, keep an eye on our Facebook page and our website. We're going to keep on updating all of our online program offerings. Right now, one of the really cool things that we're starting up on and trying to make sure people know about are what we're calling our Raptor Zoomies. So they are short kind of Zoom, Zoom bombs of a bird who can kind of come and join a Zoom meeting in progress. So if you have a gathering of any sort or a meeting that you want to liven up, check out our website for details on that. We're pretty excited about those. So check that out. As always, thank you all so much for continuing to join us for these. We'll be back next Tuesday for more Reading with Raptors. So until then, I hope you all enjoy, get outside a little bit, have a safe and healthy week. We will see you all next week.